We got that pause and we see that explosion we were talking about on this channel for quite some time after that happens, but it doesn't mean that we still need to, forget about the technicals. So today we are going to be doing that technical analysis for the SPY, Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, and NVIDIA. We're going to get into all of that and talk about the VIX because we were talking about it yesterday and something just happened. So let's get into it. What were we talking about yesterday on the SPY? Yesterday, Jerome Powell did come out and speak. And what did I tell you in yesterday's video? It seemed like we needed to see if the market was really going to call on Jerome Powell's bluff. Are we actually going to have the balls in order to go higher? Because Jerome Powell really tried his best to sound hawkish at times, but that's exactly what it seemed like. It seemed like he was trying to sound hawkish, which in my mind, that means to me that he's not that hawkish and maybe he's not going to raise rates much higher at this point. We do get data tomorrow we need to pay attention to, but right now you are getting that buy signal. And the thing we need to pay attention to here, maybe to the bullish side, we could see some kind of head and shoulders setup, right? So this would be a very bullish case here. If we do see this extended move all the way up to here, that's a big move pretty fast. You're going to see that liquidity in here act as some sellers. And then where are we going to go from there? If we do pull back, I expect us to find some buyers down in this area. There's good liquidity to grab down in this area, and maybe that's what we will use to then extend ourselves higher in a bullish case. Now, what we can note is we are way outside of that weekly range, and this is a good lesson for you if you're new to these weekly ranges. When we do get outside of them, it means that we do like to pull back into them 68% of the time. It's a bell curve, okay? But that means that the other percentage of the time, this actually can be where explosive moves happen. So we want to be kind of careful around these, moving averages, these weekly ranges, because they can have some explosive moves when we do get outside of them, because the market makers have to re-hedge and things like that. So we can see how that green is coming in as a short squeeze because they thought the market needed to end up here, and that's not happening, so they have to reposition, and it'll push higher. The last thing on the SPY I wanted to touch on is I did mark out this little gap down here. I do believe that these gaps will be important. You can see that we would, possibly fill this gap in here at some point. And I believe that's a good idea for the future. If we do get some kind of, big head and shoulders going on here, if we do actually get some pullback and then extend to higher levels, we could actually see a fill of that gap. It would line up really well with this liquidity over here. And then maybe we're able to see another bullish move in stocks. Similar things on the Qs. Okay, we're seeing pretty similar things. We're getting really, really, really close to that 50-day moving average. So I want to pay attention to that. We're actually approaching the top of that monthly range right now, and I will probably be redrawing these after the weekend because they do change a little bit. This might be actually a little bit higher, but I'll pay attention to that and I'll notify you if I do that. Right now, you are getting a buy signal on the Qs, just like on the SPY. You're getting that curl over on the MACD. And, on this channel, we do discuss how, we don't like to put a short on a stock that just crossed upward on the MACD, because a lot of the time that means that the momentum is still up, right? So we want to be very careful. But if we do go into an hourly time frame, I'm going to say here that I wouldn't have, it would have made sense for you to want to see a pullback at this point, because we are so overextended on the MACD, on the RSI here as well. We're so overbought that we could see some sort of pullback. The Qs do look like they're pulling back a little, and we'll get into Apple here in a sec to see if that's the reason why in the aftermarket. But I think we could look forward to this gap being filled before we see more upside. Let's get into Apple, and as you can see, that those numbers are not being liked as of right now by the market. Now, Amazon did have a wonky, after, post-market, when they posted their earnings, they actually were down a little bit, and then they gapped up. So it doesn't mean that we can't go higher from this area, because we are seeing that crossing on the MACD with that triple divergence, right? So we're seeing that triple divergence down here. What I'm kind of thinking with this is maybe this is just a sign we need to collect some more buyers in this area. Overall, I don't think that the numbers that they reported, they weren't the best because of the iPhone. People mostly follow the iPhone. So, but it is good news to hear that their services are doing so well. So if we just kind of exclude this, and then we kind of use this as the, if we would have completed a little connection to our neckline here, we actually can see a left ahead, and maybe we're about to carve out some kind of right shoulder over the next week or two. As we open the hourly, I think it's a good chance to talk about this purple zone and how important it was and what we do to get out of this purple zone. And if you've been subscribed, and thank you for subscribing, I really appreciate it. But what do we do to get out of this zone? Okay, let's look back. Okay, when we last time we got out of the zone, we saw that big reaction up, kind of like what we're getting right now. And then we actually did see a dip down back into this zone to gain some more buyers. So maybe that's what we can look forward to in Apple. Okay, so let's pay attention to that. Maybe this gap wants to be filled. We want to close back in this purple zone on Friday, and then we can see some buyers jump back in. Now, I don't want to only lead into that. I would like to talk about if we do break down to lower levels. So talking about this low here, if none of this purple zone heads up, maybe, or holds up, maybe we can come back down, test the top of it, and then we break down again. We will have another divergence set up here. But overall, if you were thinking of this like at a tactical standpoint before the earnings, and this is what I want to talk about because we don't take calls or take shorts when a stock has crossed on the daily. This is a very big move and it needs to be digested by the market. So if you wanted to do this, this is something that I do. I create a little checklist in my head. Okay, I say, okay, one reason to take a short here would be I'm coming up into a trend line. The next reason would be the MACD is really overextended. The next reason would be, oh, the RSI has been overbought for quite some time. There's 3 checks right there. And the only reason I wouldn't take this trade is because it's around earnings. And sometimes around earnings, technicals get thrown out the window. So I do believe the bullish and bearish side are kind of the same because this is a very overextended move. It doesn't mean that it has to go all the way down, right? It doesn't have to go all the way down like this in a straight line. But the fact that Apple's not performing, and if we do get some bad data tomorrow morning, maybe people will start to believe that Jerome Powell could hike one more time, and we do see stocks dip a little bit lower. We'll have to pay attention to that data. I'll actually bring it up at the end of this video so we can talk about it. But right now, you are seeing it dip into lower levels. We could be seeing some kind of dip down into this level to find some buyers in this purple zone in order to make another leg higher. Tesla, we did break out of that big triangle, and right now we're trying to get back above it. So if you have been subscribed to this channel, I should probably put a thumbs up and give you guys a pat on the back if you're trading Tesla, because we noticed some divergence down here that could signal that we were going to see an explosive move. The only problem for Tesla at this point is you haven't taken back that 200-day moving average. Apple is not reporting the best earnings at this point. We could see a fill of this gap to go find those buyers down in that area that we just bounced from in order to move higher from this point. You don't have a cross on the MACD or anything like that. You're still in negative territory. Your RSI is still below the center line. So even though this is a strong move and it very well could extend higher at this point, I can go in the hourly and show you guys a little bit better setup that might be, happening over the next few days. So on Tesla on the hourly here, we want to pay attention to, how far down this could dip, and we want to pay attention to bullish and bearish sides, okay? So what I would be thinking to the bullish side would be, hey, maybe this is a completion of my neckline at this point, and we do come down into this area here, maybe even fill this gap. This is an area where we just bounced from, so we know there are buyers there. Maybe we can set up some kind of left head and right shoulder, okay? That would be the bullish case in that scenario. Bearish case is we're going to make another leg lower in Tesla. And if that would happen, I would actually be a little bit surprised, but it's something to pay attention to because on a 2-hour, you're actually still in negative territory. You're down in this area, which means that the momentum is still going to go to the downside. We're still in a negative trend. So if this does actually roll over, then the trend is still down and you do have a chance to break this low. So to the bear side, I would just mainly pay attention to this low if we're able to hold up. And then also that little point of 190.10 that I've been paying attention to. I think that's a very good place for a test to find some more buyers. So we'll have to pay attention to both sides moving forward because this is a very big move on the hourly chart. We want it to get digested. I believe that Tesla has a very good likelihood to pull back and then start to head higher again. The main thing that I was talking about on Amazon was that we might need to digest a little bit around this area in order to head higher. I would have liked to see this dip back down, gain some of these moving averages, and then start to head higher at this point. Because you can see we are getting outside of that Bollinger Band and we're getting this reversal candle here. Overall, this candle just tells me, hey, the momentum might be dying out. This might be as high as it wants to go. And maybe we need to start to consolidate in order to head higher at this point. If Amazon does react to Apple just like Apple reacts to Amazon. So if Apple reports bad earnings, it actually can affect Amazon because Apple products are sold on Amazon, okay? So we could see some kind of pullback, even down just into our 50 here. So that's kind of what I'm paying attention to at this point. I just think that this is a very big move, and we're going to go into shorter time frames to show you how quickly this went up. This is what I'm talking about. This move isn't necessarily healthy. I would say something like this is decently healthy, but overall we want to reconnect with probably the 50 before we start to head a little bit higher. It's good on the hourly that we took back our 200. It's good that we broke out of this wedge, but a lot of the time we do like to retest. So could we actually come all the way down and retest that level before extending higher? Yes, that is definitely possible. You can see this kind of wonky action in the MACD, this trickling upward of the RSI here, and you can see the price action just curving all the way up. Okay, so to the bullish side, I do think at this point you do want some kind of pullback in order to head to higher levels so that this can remain healthy at this point. And then to the bear side, I would really be paying attention to, this gap down here. I think this gap down here could prove as a good point to look to if we do see some bearish things over the next few days. Now, if this would happen, what I would still want to happen, because this is a curvy move, is I would want a full completion of this cup here, some kind of tiny handle, and then we could head to lower levels. So we'll want to pay attention to Amazon moving forward. This is a very overextended move right now. I would really like to see a pullback in Amazon before we start to head higher. On video, we were telling you guys how we had that divergence right here, right? We still have it actually drawn on there, okay? But you have not gotten that crossing on the MACD. This thing is giving you indecision at this point. We're getting near that 50. We could see some selling start to happen here because this is a very rapid move. So what could we expect from this? Now, if this does actually curl over and we see some strength, we could see that start to extend higher, right? Because we have this divergence down here on the MACD and RSI at the same time on a daily chart, okay? So that's what we're paying attention to here. Now, to the bearish side, overall, I'm paying attention to this gap. Then after the gap, I'm going to pay attention to the neckline. Then we pay attention to the low. I still think there is a chance that NVIDIA does want to come back down a little bit lower, and then we can see if we get some kind of retest to head to lower levels in the bearish case. But if this does break down from here and we're able to buy back in, you're going to set yourself up with some kind of triple divergence. And here's that divergence we were talking about, okay? So here's that divergence just to show you guys what we've been discussing on this channel, okay? So we did see this divergence. We see a little bit of a wedge, right? A little bit of a wedge here. So we can say that if we get some good news, then we could go to the upside. And once that we do get that pausing, right? We get that pause and those yields start to back off. You see that explosive move that happened in NVIDIA. So it's pretty cool to see that start to play out. Now we have to see if it can roll over that daily, okay? If it's able to be bullish on the daily MACD, then we can start to get a little more bullish and look for some upside. But if it does start to break down from here, what we want to pay attention to is how we react at this gap. But you can see, just like a lot of charts, it looks like we have a bunch of head and shoulders starting to head up. And that's overall why I'm leaning towards some kind of lower high in the near future. Sorry about that. I just said lower high. That happens to me all the time. Higher low. We're looking for that higher low on a lot of these stocks. Here's what I'm talking about with those yields. You can see that once we do get that pause, how dramatically we do drop off, okay? So once we get that pause, we start to see that drop off. These divergences are starting to play out. Could we see those rates go higher from here? Yes, we do still get data. And Jerome Powell did say, even though he was seeming like he was trying to sound hawkish, but that can be enough with some data, okay? So some data tomorrow could come out that could hint that the Fed isn't done with their rate hiking, and we could see this start to trickle back up. Do I think that's possible or the most probable at this point? Not necessarily, but it doesn't mean that I can't be wrong and we can't get another push in these yields to give some stocks a little bit of pain. TLT is another one we're going to pay attention to some kind of head and shoulders if it starts to form right in here. We can see a left, a head, and a right shoulder possibly form. So if these yields do get excited and come up into this area, they can start to go a little higher, right? The TLT can start to pull back down. Just like any other stock, they can come into a liquidity zone like this and create that right shoulder. So if we do see that start to happen, it looks like the market and TLT are starting to flow together at this point, right? So we could see, TLT and stocks heading higher in the near future, but I do believe these are some very strong moves that need to be digested. Now, the main thing I wanted to talk about on the VIX and why I believe if we do get some kind of, pullback over the next day or so, that we could actually still be getting a bull run into the end of the year is because we are doing what we said needed to happen yesterday, right? We needed us to close firmly below the 200 and the 50 at the same time. But you can notice we are coming into the bottom of that Bollinger. So if we do come a little bit lower, we'll actually come outside that Bollinger and we could see a reaction. Apple looks like they're not reporting the best earnings. So we could see another push in the VIX here to come create a right shoulder. Okay, so you got to get good at noticing these types of things. And you can say, hey, maybe this level right here is the neckline. This is my left, this is my head. And then we come and make some kind of right shoulder over the next couple, like week or so. Now, I wanted to end the video with the data that comes out tomorrow. And you notice tomorrow we do actually get a Fed speaker in the morning at 8 a.m. And then after that, 8:30, we do get non-farm payrolls and unemployment. And these things are very, very important for the market to understand, or for the Fed to understand whether or not there is going to be more rate hikes going into the future. So if you are hoping to be bullish at this point, your non-farm payrolls are coming in at 180, 190. We would want to see those start to, go actually down. So that would be very good for the market. And then the unemployment rate staying steady at 3.8. You actually want unemployment to start to go up. Okay. So if we do start to see that go tick up, then we could say that the Fed is doing their job. If we start to see non-farm payrolls drop off, then we could say the Fed is doing their job. But if these numbers actually come in higher, it could be very bad. Or if the unemployment comes in lower and the non-farm payrolls comes in higher, it could mean some turmoil for the market in the short term. And after that, you do get PMI. So you don't really get a break tomorrow, right? 8:30, you get data. 10 o'clock, you get data. So what you're paying attention to here is an uptick in this number here. So 53.6, it's looking like it's supposed to possibly come down, possibly stay even at this point. So we just want to pay attention to if this number ticks up. If it does tick up, then we could start to see more reasons for those rate hikes that Jerome Powell was hinting at, keeping on the table each month back in, and people could get feared out of their current position, which is bullish at this point, aka we could see some kind of pullback. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video and liking, subscribing. You guys are awesome. If you guys would like to comment any kind of questions that you do have around indicators, I am creating my course at this point. I would really be interested, what kind of questions you guys have, and if I can implement it into the course, where I'm going to show you a trading strategy around those weekly ranges. Okay, so around those weekly ranges, and if your question does happen to make sense with what I'm creating at this point, and makes sense when utilizing the MACD, RSI, and things like that, then I will try to include that in my course. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful night and a great trading day to end your week. Okay, peace.